ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाखया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिन् इति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशधारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। So here we are seeing that Lord Kapila is explaining how the living entity, when he is undergoing these painful, terrible conditions within the womb of his mother, he is in a very frightful condition. And there, Prabhupada explains, if he is fortunate, then he appeals to the Lord, he prays to the Lord, because he understands that it is by the Supreme Lord and based on my sinful activities I have been put into this terrible condition of life. So he prays to the Lord, seeking his shelter and asking him to relieve him from this terrible condition of life, and promises that I will not commit once again these kind of sinful activities, so that again I'll have to be put into this kind of similar miserable condition of life, into repeated birth and death. So that is what it is said here. Nathamanaha Rishihi Bhitaha. In a very appealing tone, Rishi, the living entity, being in a very frightful condition, Bhitaha, and at the same time, Sapta Vadrihi, he is bound by the 7 layers. So this, according to Ayurveda, every living entity is covered by these 7 material ingredients: skin, blood, muscle, fat, bone, marrow and semen. So these are the 7 layers which cover every living entity. Our material body is made up of these 7 elements. So skin is there outside, and within the skin is blood, muscle, fat, bone, marrow and semen. So it is very important to understand that actually this is how the punishment of Maya actually works. Sometimes we may wonder why the Lord puts the living entity into distressful condition. It is just like Prabhupada gives an example that sometimes the loving father puts his child under some strong man in order to bring him to the correct path. Similarly, this is one of the important work of material energy. Tapakari, to give miseries to the living entities. Bhagavatam says that the work of material energy is actually to give miseries to the living entity. And that is why this material world is called agara. It is a prison house where the living entity is trapped not only in the womb, that is one kind of suffering, but the suffering begins when the living entity actually takes this material body itself. He is encased in this material body. So, Bhagavad Gita also we find Krishna says, Chaturvidha bhajante mam. There are 4 kinds of people who surrender to the Lord. Artho, one who is in distress. Difference is, if he is dushkriti, then he will not surrender. If he is sukriti, he may have performed sinful activities, but he is not atheistic. He is not asuric. He has not developed that nature. So then, whenever there is a distress, he will turn towards God. So we find people, they may not be devotees, but if they are pious, whenever there is distress in their life, they turn to God. So, this is a very important work of Maya. To give pains to the living entity in order to bring them to the right consciousness. And Prabhupada explains in Bhagavatam, that is why Maya is sometimes ashamed to stand before the Lord. Because this is a thankless task Maya has to perform. Somebody slaps you on your face in order to bring you to the right path. Will you thank him? Thank you very much, sir. Nice slap you have given me. Isn't it? Nobody will thank. Similarly, when policeman is beating a thief, he is actually doing correct, so that he can come to his senses. The thief is not going to thank him. It's a thankless task. So, the Lord also is not very happy to put Maya to give trouble to the living entities. So unwillingly the Lord arranges this. So it should not be misunderstood when the living entity, when here Lord Kapila is saying, who has put him in that condition. Living entity, it is not that some living entities are put in terrible condition and some are put in better condition and the Lord is partial. It is not like this. It is according to one's own desires according to one's own different kinds of actions one has performed, one is simply reaping the results. The Lord only facilitates through Maya. So the Lord, yes, police only puts you behind the bars, but police is not responsible for you putting you behind the bar. Your actions are responsible. That has to be understood. So, one may question that in the womb of the mother, the living entity is not very well developed in his consciousness. How does he pray? When a child is born, we don't find child joining his hand and then praying, isn't it? So how come when he is hardly 9 to 10 month old, just before the delivery of the child, when he is put into this horrible condition, how come he has this tendency to pray to the Supreme Lord? One may have this question. So Prabhupada explains in the later verses that anything is possible by the arrangements of the Lord. By the arrangement of the Lord, Krishna consciousness is so potent that even in the womb, a child can become Krishna conscious. Prabhupada explains, one does not require even external paraphernalia to become Krishna conscious. Because one may wonder, we are doing Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pada Sevanam. We are doing deity worship here. We have paraphernalia to worship the Lord. Yesterday we did Abhishekam. So we put flowers, we put different kinds of items, purified items, sacred items to worship the Lord. Where are these items available? In the womb of the mother? Isn't it? So, Prabhupada says Krishna consciousness cannot be hindered by any kind of material circumstances. That is why if you read in the first chapter of Bhagavatam, Prabhupada explains the glories of devotional service. And that is the reason Narada is telling Vedavyasa that even if these words of Srimad Bhagavatam, they are composed, let us say, with some faults in it. There is some grammatical fault. He says, even then, these kinds of literature which is meant for genuinely glorifying the Supreme Lord, it is approved, heard and chanted by great personalities. On the other hand, those literatures which are bereft of Achyuta Bhava, even though such literature may be very nicely with metaphors and different kinds of alankaras, it is decorated, still it is only a place of pilgrimage for crows. Great saintly people do not take interest in that. So Prabhupada explains that actually devotional service is so great that it does not depend on any material circumstances. There Prabhupada gives a list of how in different phases, in all circumstances, in all planets, in all places, devotional service can be performed. So there, Prabhupada gives the example that Prahlad Maharaj practiced devotional service even in the womb of his mother. See? And then there are examples of Dhruva Maharaj or even Prahlad Maharaj later on practicing devotional service when he was a child. So one can practice devotional service in the womb. One can practice devotional service when he is a child. One can practice devotional service when he is a youth. Bharat Maharaj, when he was young. Shukdev Goswami, 16-year-old, came out from the womb of the mother. He was going away. And then Veda Vyasa taught him Srimad Bhagavatam. So one can learn. One can become Krishna conscious even in his old age. And the example is Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra, he was not Krishna conscious in the beginning. Vidura tried a lot to make him Krishna conscious. But when finally everything was lost, bewildered, and he was completely dependent on the mercy of Pandavas, then Vidura, with his sharp words, somehow or other was able to make him to retire from that royal palace and go out and perform austerities and devotional service. So even in his old age. And then we find there is no difference. One can practice devotional service even if he is born in the family of Asuras, born in the family of Chandalas. So these material circumstances do not. One can practice devotional service at the point of death. Ajamila chanted at the point of death and he was saved. Parikshit Maharaj, he had only 7 days left and he attained perfection in 7 days. And Khatwanga Maharaj, 1 muhurt, right? Only that much time he had. And he attained perfection in that time. So, this is the potency of devotional service. So we should not be very surprised. How come child in the womb of the mother without any paraphernalia? Because Krishna consciousness actually does not depend on material circumstances. Otherwise, how come a small child like Dhruva Maharaj recites such beautiful prayers? Isn't it? What is that shloka? Mukam karoti vachalam pangur langhayate girim. Correct? By the mercy of the Supreme Lord, by the mercy of pure devotees, it is possible that even Mukam, one who cannot talk, actually he can write wonderful poetries. One who cannot walk, he can climb mountains. And that is what Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is saying, that it is all by the mercy of my spiritual master. It is all by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda, that even in this old age, where my hands are shaking, my memory is getting, slowly withered away, and still this wonderful Leela of the Lord, Chaitanya Charitamrita, I am able to write. So, one can understand that yes, by the arrangement of the Lord, it is very much possible. So the Lord arranges, as it is said. Otherwise, how come, even as a small child, the moment he starts gaining consciousness of pain and pleasure, Lord Kapila said, if he is fortunate, he will remember his past 100 lives. Otherwise, how does he remember? We don't remember now, right? Where do we remember? Even if you are most intelligent, you are not able to remember. That means it is the mercy of the Lord. It is the arrangement of the Lord. Otherwise, even in our this consciousness where it is very well developed, we cannot remember. So, either in developed or undeveloped consciousness, the Lord can make certain arrangement so that we can advance. So Prabhupada explains that does not matter even if later on he will forget. But whatever he has performed, even in the womb, if he has prayed to the Lord, it guarantees his liberation. It may take few lifetimes, but anything done in devotional service is never a loss. But by this, we have to be very alert by this example that the child prayed so wonderfully in the womb of the mother, praying to the Lord, my dear Lord, this will be my last lifetime, I will surrender unto you. And after he comes out and is surrounded by loving relatives, completely forgets everything. So we have to be very alert. Circumstantially, Krishna consciousness can be suppressed by Maya. Bharat Maharaj had to wait for 2 more lifetimes, even though he was a great devotee of the Lord. So, we should never be overconfident. No, does not matter. I know things. So, we have to be very careful of following the regulative principles in Krishna consciousness. Always praying to the Lord. Always praying to the Lord for protection. Always dependent on the mercy of the Lord. The moment we develop pride that I am a great personality, I am a great devotee, immediately there is a fall down. So, in the morning we were reading in today's Namamrita, Prabhupada explaining that these two, the constant remembrance of the Supreme Lord is very important. Constant remembrance of the Supreme Lord. And the Lord has made it possible in Kali Yuga by incessantly, without cessation, chanting the holy name of the Lord. Kirtaniya sada harihi. One can remember the Lord at the point of death if incessantly he is able to chant the holy name of the Lord. So don't waste time in gossips and so many things. It is a very important time the Lord has given us in this human form of life, that somehow or other, if we utilize that time as per the direction given by Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada guarantees that we will go back to Godhead. Anyone who follows direction as given by the spiritual master, bona fide spiritual master, is guaranteed to go back to Godhead. And Prabhupada says, this is the meaning that the spiritual master is very, very dear to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he is endowed with that power. Just like Prabhupada gives the example that even if you are third class, I may be a rascal, but somehow or other, if Srimati Radharani recommends us to the Supreme Lord, he cannot refuse. So similarly, if the spiritual master somehow or other is pleased by our endeavor, and even we may be still third class, Krishna will have to accept. You see? This is the meaning of power of attorney. Prabhupada explains this as power of attorney. That means you empower somebody. Suppose I give you power of attorney. Even now it happens in our many GBC resolution. The temple president is given the power of attorney to go and sign on behalf of governing body. So that means if president is signing, it is as good as governing body signing. That is how it is given. The power of attorney is given. You see. You can also give. Suppose you give a power of attorney to someone and he signs on behalf of you, and by mistake if he writes all your property in his name, you will have to give it, because he has got that power of attorney. So Prabhupada explains that even if he makes a mistake, of course the spiritual master never makes a mistake, but Prabhupada explains like that. The person who is given the power of attorney, if he somehow or other recommends someone, Krishna will have to accept. Because that is the meaning of power of attorney. You see. So, it is so important that actually if we all follow simply the regulative principles and the rules and regulation given by Srila Prabhupada, he promises that we will be able to go back to Godhead. So devotional service is very, very potent, and specifically its potency is released in association of devotees. In Bhagavatam, Lord Kapila says that Satam prasangat mama virya samavido. So that is why even practically when the last purports Prabhupada was giving, he is lying down on the bed and practically he is not able to move, and with very much difficulty we can see that actually Prabhupada was never affected by three modes of material nature. So Prabhupada, even there he is saying it is very important association, keep good association. That will keep us in the mode of goodness, because mode of goodness means liberation. Passion and ignorance means bondage in this material world. You see. So, one has to be very alert by these kinds of examples, that whatever Krishna consciousness we have developed for so many years, it may be lost circumstantially, and I should be alert to see that I am always dependent on the Lord so that it is not lost. So we can see the example here. So much the child prays in the womb of the mother with folded hands, and very enlightening prayers you will find. He is saying the Supreme Lord is the shelter of everyone. The child will say, you will find in the very, very enlightened prayers. So the child is so much enlightened even in the womb of the mother, but Maya is so strong, the moment he comes out, he forgets. So Prabhupada says everyone should be very careful that Maya is very strong. I can forget. So we should always pray to the Lord that, my dear Lord, please do not put me in this kind of forgetful condition of life where I will forget you. That is what Prahlad Maharaj also prays. He says, my dear Lord, if you want to benedict me anything, then please, from the core of my heart, please take out these material desires. Because these material desires are the one which makes us to forget the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we'll stop with this Granthra, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai.